Welcome to the Ang&Geno show, where we talk about ways for you to grow your life and your business.
Good day to you, Gino. How are you today? Welcome back.
Well, thank you. I am good, and still waiting for summer to start, but
Yeah, I
I'm
think
enjoying it. We don't have the
it's a
heat
slow
hasn't
roll.
started really yet, at least up here.
No. Well, hopefully by the time this podcast comes out, we might be sitting in a little bit more heat. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
maybe. Hope
We'll
so.
see. But I'm looking forward to catching up with you today. And I've been thinking about, we talk a lot about personal development, develop yourself and develop your business, and how there's so much overlap between those two journeys. That the journey to developing a business is really, an independent journey. You work with owners of companies and executives and teams, and we both know that what you bring to work has a big impact on what happens at work and the success. And I was thinking a little bit more about this journey to wisdom. And I think we do a lot of the growth internally, but I think we all come across people in our life that taught us something, or that believed in us, that gave us courage or confidence, or sometimes just a kind ear or a kind word. I thought it'd be fun to get to know some of the different teachers we've had in our lives here together. And I wanted to ask you a question to kind of reflect on that. I want to help our listeners to also think about, were there people in their life that helped them grow, and what did they learn from each person? It's such a powerful way to take account of the journey. There's a little bit of gratitude in there. And I know practicing gratitude is a great confidence builder, feel good. I don't know, it's how to identify your tribe, as well as, expressing your gratitude is an anxiety reducer. So anyways, as part of our journey, what comes to mind for you on who your great teachers have been?
Wow. So when you say teacher, I immediately go to actual school teachers.
But it's not just school, is it?
Yeah. No, not at
Yeah.
all. Um, if I really want to think about the greatest teachers, my parents, but not in the way you would think. They taught me what not to do.
Tell me more.
you know, I
Mhm.
watched them in their lives, and not that there's anything wrong with a blue collar lifestyle, but they didn't seem to want more for themselves. They just complained about the people that had more than they did, which
Mhm.
as I grew older, I realized that, in fact, in the 80s, remember, there's a popular show, the Bill Cosby show, was, where you had, he was
Yes.
a doctor, she was a lawyer, and another show that was popular at that time was Roseanne, where they
Mm.
were more the blue collar, actually the house that I grew up in.
Mm.
And I just remember watching how they talked to each other in Roseanne and the family dynamics versus the family dynamics on the Cosby
Mm.
show. And then I met a girl who came from a little bit of money. Um, and her mom kind of taught me how to eat. Here's how you eat at a fancy restaurant with all the silverware. I just, there was those things. So I don't know. The biggest lesson, the earliest big lesson that I think I gained from, I'm talking to teachers now, my parents, was that they were loving, fun people, but you know, rather than complain about things, you can actually do something about it. If you want more, do something different. Not just complain about it and accept that this is how it's always going to be. That was the
Yeah.
probably most impactful lesson I learned in my life. Um,
Mhm.
but I don't know if that really answers your question, because there are some individuals that really stood out to me. But
But it's
is
interesting because what you're talking about, you're saying, I learned what not to do. Somehow, we talk about sometimes life is a teacher to us. And I think, it's interesting how for you, there was the metaphor of these two TV shows that captured families in different ways. And you took something from that, that was, you were open to what it was like. Sounds like you were open and curious when you're dating this girl. I think that's really powerful for your qualities. I mean, were these things you were born with? It's interesting though that what is it? Sometimes we choose to stay where we're planted, and sometimes we replant ourselves where we want to grow. It sounds like you replanted yourself and you chose where you wanted to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the downside of that is I don't have that close relationship with my parents anymore. Not that I'm not close and don't love them, they don't love me, but I can't relate to them anymore. Mostly because they have no understanding of the life I've created. You know, that it's you remember people with money, it was um I don't know. It was just they could only get there being bad I don't know. The world it's anyway. I can't, I called my dad for Father's Day and didn't, we're having a conversation. It just always seems so one sided because he doesn't just have really an interest in what I do. So he doesn't ask about it. And if it comes up and I even try to explain, the
Yeah, it's
subject
hard.
changes, which, my younger self would have been hurt that my parent didn't have an interest in it. And now I just have an understanding that they just don't understand. And so it is.
I think it's powerful. I think we're tapping into the way I think a lot of us grow up and have a look at our parents as people. We get to a point in life where we see, I had that same journey, right? Where you start to see your parents as people. And for me, it's interesting because my father was my career path in a beautiful way. So I had a super, like for me, when we started working together is when the relationship opened up. So I struggled to connect with my father because I tried to be sporty and watch football, but it was more something that my brother did with him, and they had that affinity and that true love of, you know, I could watch one football game, but I couldn't watch an entire Sunday of football game. So
Mhm.
I had my limits, but I really, for me, my connection with my father actually started when we started working together, and even beyond graduate school. So it was weird. It wasn't until I was like 29 that that relationship blossomed. So for me, it kind of went the other way where I wasn't that close and then we got closer. So gosh, there's all sorts of ways you can relate to people
Yeah.
and and I bet people listening to this can think about their own family relationships, and I think you're right. I think love, you overcome, you have that conversation, you wish him a happy Father's Day, but it can be hard to share with a parent that doesn't get excited about what makes you excited.
Yeah.
And I think, I always say I think our parents try to shoot us as arrows as far as they can. I have a philosophy where I think about if we arrived at adulthood fed, clothed, sent to school, and with a roof over our head, that our parents did okay, right? Like,
Yeah.
and from there we really grow. And it sounds like you're a model of that too. I am, where you just kind of pick up your life and you make it what you want, and you don't let where you come from hold you back. That's a powerful message here. Um, my father came from very humble beginnings, and I saw him struggle with some of the same things. He got in the sixth grade, he got a scholarship. One of his public school teachers was married to a teacher, and he taught at a very expensive private boys' school in LA. And she convinced him to allow my father to apply for a scholarship, and he got accepted for the seventh grade. And his parents were so struggling to make ends meet that all they just cared about where he was at night and what was he getting in trouble or not. And they just said, you just better be home. And he didn't even explain to his parents that he had gotten a scholarship, because he
Oh,
said
wow.
he knew they had no concept of what it meant. They wouldn't care. And all he said was, hey, Ma, tomorrow when I go to school, I'm going to go that way instead of that way. That's all he told her. And I think for him, his journey to create who he wanted to be was, he never complained about his parents. They were people that were faced with a lot of really tough things as immigrants. They were immigrants from Greece, and really struggled. My father describes growing up, he's like, one of his favorite desserts was bread, butter, and sugar, spread. And he said, but
Little
then he would
cinnamon
add,
on there too. That was one of mine.
right? But that description ended, he said, when we had all three in the house at the same time. And so it gives me a clue, right? And it's interesting because when I was a child, my father would describe his childhood stories with such richness and wonderfulness, and like all the things he had, three brothers. He lost a brother when he was 19, but he had three brothers growing up, and like they got to all kinds of little our gang kind of fun, and we were little kids, and my brother and I would be like, Dad, we want to be, he goes, your childhood sounds so fun. And oh my gosh, the adventures they got up to, and just, and we were like, he's like, oh no, he's like, we were really poor. And I'm like, well, Dad, it sounds fun. We want to be poor. And I remember now as an adult, his mirthful laugh, like, oh, child, you have no idea what you're saying. But I think children have this resilience and need to grow and thrive, and the power of play is powerful. But it's interesting. So I see what my father's experience was growing up. I felt fortunate that I had a parent that was, very much in line with where I was going. But anyways, lots of interesting ways. And, every story of how people relate to their family is so important and powerful to me that I think it's some of our first teachers. And sometimes what not to do is a great way to learn.
Yeah. So as far as teachers though, they're the ones that connected with me. See, like in middle school, there's a science teacher that she just connected with me somehow, and so I wanted to do good in her class. Um, my wrestling coach was also a science teacher for me. I wanted to impress him, you know, so I applied myself in his class. Otherwise, I didn't really apply myself in classes. But I did have a teacher that I wasn't really that fond of, but she saw something in me. And so I remember, here I was the, jock wrestler, you know, just did what I had to be able to wrestle, you know, C's. That's all I needed. Again, I only got A's in the classes that I wanted to impress somebody. Um, but she took me aside and she goes, I want you to know that I think you should be on our academic decathlon team. And I'm like, that's for, nerds, right? That was, the popular word at the time, the TV, the movie Revenge of the Nerds or whatever. It's just, and so I was like, I'm captain of the wrestling team. I can't be on the, what shallow backwards ass thinking I had at the time. But so I didn't do it. I wish I had, but the fact that she made that, I'm like, because I was asking, why me? I'm looking at all these smart people in the class, and why is it me? She's saying, she says, you're smart, and you're smart in a lot of ways, and I think the team would benefit from having you. So anyway, it's not that she taught me anything; it was the fact that she just saw something in me that no one else had seen, really.
You're tapping into something. I've been pulling together some materials and for my work, and getting into some conversations about like what impacts people, how do people change. And you talk about this thing of she saw something in you. I have this phrase that I use a lot, that humans need to be seen. And they don't sound like very powerful words, be seen. But in the context of a story like this, it is this moment when someone sees something in us. My dad's sixth grade teacher saw something in him. This teacher whom, it's not like you were fawning all over them as a teacher. They saw something in you that you didn't necessarily even instigate, right? So it was truly something coming from you. And I think this power to be seen is probably both the most delicious feeling in the world. It's rocket fuel for self-confidence and growth. And, it's interesting. I get a lot of questions from people I coach and work with around helping them with their children. How do I help my child grow? How can because they see, when I'm coaching them, they're like, wow, I realize what this coaching is doing for me. And how do I do that coaching for my child? And we talk about the power of, being present, seeing people. And I think it's a lot how you and I both work with our clients. We take time with them. We become passionate about their business. I think that's one of the things for you and I, that we really get excited when our clients get excited. And when they're successful, their success becomes our success. And
Yeah,
I
and
think
I
that helps them
agonize when they're
succeed.
not.
Yeah, yeah, yes. And you're the relentless one when they're not, to go, hey, we can fix this. We
Yeah.
can fix this. And but I think this power, I think that from that bucket of, is this the being seen bucket? I think a lot of the world is trying to be seen. I think how we go about getting seen can be hit or miss in the world. But I think, and that's where I think social media, people are getting seen, but we're not having a human moment in being seen. It's powerful. I think we learn a lot of beautiful stories on Instagram. There's a lot of amazing people, quote unquote, I meet on Instagram.
Mhm.
You on TikTok and Instagram, you are one of those people on TikTok, right? That people want to meet. I know you have a TikTok account and you have a wonderful following growing there. And you highlight, what you do is you take the time to see into the life of a musician. So your very story that you tell is about seeing a musician from a little bit of a deeper point of view. Think about your success there on TikTok is about seeing something in a musician and sharing that with people, and people are finding that interesting. So I think you're bringing out maybe this point that we're talking about, the power of being seen. Is that the secret to growth? I don't know, but I think being seen is an idea that if people focus in on that, they can be better for others, and looking for that in others, they can become better for someone, for us to see each other. I think you and I, even how we started working together, we saw so much in each other, just to use that same word, that we identified with, that sparked us. So being able to see each other's focus, way of work, is also how this connection happened for us, bringing such joy and fun to our work.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I'm going to share this little fun story about that teacher that I shared that saw something in me.
Mm.
This was a class, it was a simple home economics or something like that, right? It's where you're learning how to balance a checkbook and stuff. This is a high school 1 semester class. And a close friend of mine had failed it. And I was, being a wonderful friend, giving him a real shitty time about it, you know. He's like, you won't even be able to pass it. It's hard. You and I go, I'll get an A. And he's like, okay, well, you're not going to get an A. Maybe you'll get a C. And I'm like, no, I'll get an A. And so anyway, because I had it the following semester and he had to retake it. So we sat next to each other because we're best friends. He was one of my cycling friends. He sickens me. He never was in the Tour de France because he was that fast. He just started drinking and stuff instead. But anyway, um, so I helped him the whole time through the school or through the class. We would do these extra credit assignments to help him get his grade up. I was like leading him, and so that helped me. Doing the extra credit like guaranteed me the A, and then it got him to pass. But here's what was interesting: it came down to the final day, and he and I had a plan. I said, okay, there's those tiles on the floor. There's 4 of them, and I said, each answer, I'll put my foot an A, B, C, or D. So I'll just move my foot around. You mark that little, bubble. And so before the class, she started moving everybody away from the smart kids. So there's this other gal, and we're like, oh no. But she didn't move him from me. She knew I was helping him cheat. And that blows me away. I mean, it was hands down. She knew flat out that I'm helping this kid pass this class.
Wow.
And I thought that was
Wow.
amazing.
It is. Boy, this is a whole topic. Maybe we do this in our next website, excuse me, podcast. Um, it's so interesting that school is such an individual endeavor, yet in life, success is all about team effort and helping each other. And while, technically this is a story about, ooh, you helped someone cheat, let's focus on the word you helped someone take a nonsensical class that, maybe we how many classes do we take that are not in our forte?
Yeah.
Why not just take classes that you're going to get A's in life? Wouldn't that be a great way to build life? Like, why make a professional basketball player go get an A in baseball? That's the metaphor, right?
Right.
And that's how we go through school. Like, okay, get A's in everything. And it's for kids. They come out and they're like not great at anything, and they've poured their heart and soul into these grades. But how interesting that she left that. I don't know where we're at in terms of my gosh, I think we've been around the world on this, looking at,
Still didn't talk about
teachers and what we're
specific
learning.
teachers. You didn't get to tell me any.
But no, but we did. I mean, I think, my father became a teacher, and, I think about some teachers stand out for me as interesting people. For me, it was teachers that engaged us as people. I had a teacher, I remember one of my favorite teachers read us Charlotte's Web. We'd work really hard to earn our reading time. And she'd turn the lights out and she'd read Charlotte's Web to us in the quiet, cool, darkened room of our third grade class. And it was magical to be read to. And yes, I cried like a baby at the end of Charlotte's Web. And I love spiders because of that.
Hmm.
But anyways, so I've had a lot of really wonderful teachers, and well, maybe there's a part two to teachers. But I think it's really about amassing all the wonderful people that have done something for us along the way. And I think this human ability to connect helps us develop grit and stick to itiveness, because I think it's these people that somehow, I don't know, do they come at the right time, or do they create the right time that someone can say something? Sometimes people will tell me stories about how they'll have like a down life and someone will just buy the meal for the person behind them in line, and it just happens to be the person who needs it that day, and I
Yeah.
think we're all sometimes having days like that. And maybe we talk about our pay it forward stories. So many podcast conversations to come, but I think we're at our time limit for today. This has been fabulous topic to start, and sounds like you've had some good teachers for good or bad, right? And same
Yeah.
here.
Well, I think the biggest key for me is I've learned, and this probably didn't happen till way later, that you can learn something from everybody. You just got to be willing to figure out what that is.
You know what? That's it. You can learn from everybody.
Yeah.
So receptivity is an openness and curiosity,
Yeah.
consistent factors in life. Well, my friend, that's a very nice tick and tie to a really big topic. I like that.
All right. Well, until next time.
You got it, Gino. I'm looking forward to next time.
All right, Ange.